So in August 1844, Franz Liszt, the great pianist, was invited in Montpellier in the house of the painter Laurens for lunch. And that conversation might very well change your view on the great pianist as on the entire 19th century music forever. So welcome guys here to this channel. It's all about music here. We try to reconstruct the original, authentic if you wish, thought of the composer. What was Beethoven thinking the final seconds before he started to note down his Fifth Symphony? And there is a lot of talking on right and wrong here on the channel right now. But guys, we are all free to do whatever we want. The only thing that we here on this channel care about is reconstruct what might have been there in the head of the composer. So that August of 1844, Liszt was in Montpellier for some concerts and he was invited at the house of the painter Laurens. I hope I pronounce his name correct. It's the Laurens would be the French pronunciation. He was a painter, he painted a lot of musicians, he was in close contact with Mendelssohn, Brahms and now apparently also Liszt, and so that might have been one of the reasons that Liszt went to his house for a lunch. But Mr. Laurens was also a very big Bach admirer. He had a collection of manuscripts, of scores, and he was one of those that supported Mendelssohn and others in the, you would say, the search of music of J.S.Bach. Liszt, of course, was also one of those Bach admirers, has done a lot for the music of Bach. And during the lunch, there was a kind of awkward moment, because Liszt apparently had the image, or people thought, or he was playing concerts in which he acted a little bit as, you know, an artist. I mean, playing with the audience in a different way, with attitudes, with gestures, with whatever you have. And this Mr. Laurens, he didn't like that. So during the lunch he decided to face Liszt with what he thought about him. And that conversation has been noted down. I'm going to read it to you because it's really important. I quote from the book The Reception of Bach's Organ Works from Mendelssohn to Brahms. It's written by Russell Stinson. It's page 107. You have the reputation, the painter stated brusquely, point blank, of being a big charlatan, as you are a great artist. He rather brutally took the bull by the horns. Liszt did not flinch and even took on a spirit of frank and witty amiability. Laurens drew his portrait. They lunched, chatting about so many of the most interesting things and musical celebrities. I have to ask you, the painter said at one point, to play for me a certain piece by Sebastian Bach for organ with obbligato pedal, the first in the volume with the 6 fugues, the one in A minor, so difficult that you are without a doubt the only person in the world who can tackle it. This is a unique opportunity for me today that I cannot pass up. And Liszt answered, right now? How do you want me to play it? The painter replied, how? But the way it ought to be played. And then Liszt continued, here it is a first time, as the author must have understood it, played it himself, or intended it to be played. And then Liszt played, and it was admirable, the very perfection of the classical style and exactly in conformity with the original. And then Liszt continued, here it is a second time, as I feel it, with a slightly more picturesque movement, a more modern style, and the effects demanded by an improved instrument. And as the quote continues, saying, and it was, with these nuances, different but no less admirable. And then Liszt added something that is really important. Finally, here it is a third time, as I would play it for the public, to astonish, as a charlatan. And lighting a cigar that passed at moments from between his lips to his fingers, executing with his 10 fingers the part written for the pedal, and indulging in other tours de force, he was prodigious, incredible, fabulous, and received gratefully with enthusiasm. Why is this so important? We today, we have the impression that if we would time travel back into the 19th century, 1844, 1821, we will even bring a source that will just blow you from your chair. We think that we then would hear music played as the composers of that time wanted their music to be played. But nothing could be further from the truth. In the 19th century, there were no musicians, almost no musicians, that really cared about the idea of the composers. And this quote is so strong because Liszt himself, he acknowledges the fact that there are kind of actually three ways of performing a piece. One is how the author originally, authentically had the piece in mind. Two, same approach in fact, but a little bit adjusted to the modern instruments, the improved instruments, as he said. So already this is very interesting, because aren't we supposed to believe that it were the older pianos with the lighter touch who gave the possibility for the faster tempi, and yet here Liszt acknowledges the fact that he adapted that old music to the possibilities of the improved instrument, still within the boundaries of what he thinks the original author had in mind, but with a more picturesque movement, which means he played it faster. Contradicts everything that modern musicology believes, that it were the lighter Viennese pianos who made the faster tempi possible, and that were the later pianos with the heavier touch who slowed down the tempi. Both are proven wrong here, only in the middle of this quote. Liszt adapted the original speed to the new instruments that allowed him to play faster. Tempi went up in the 19th century and instruments were designed accordingly. But we're still in option number 2, still within the boundaries what was authentic and correct, yet acknowledging at the same time to make substantial corrections. But then we go to option number 3 and let's see what happens now. And thirdly, the way the audience wants him to play, as a charlatan. If you imagine for a moment, or if you stand still for a moment, that Liszt, even Liszt, did not escape the wishes of the audience of the 19th century. There you had a new audience that just wanted to see artists in an astonishing way. And in this quote, it's very clear what this charlatan-like thing is. It's like playing a lot of notes, doing incredible things, but very far from what the author originally had in mind. If we would replace the word charlatan by professional, we are directly here in 2020. If I play a sonata of Beethoven slower, people come on the channel and say, why do you not play it faster? Can you not play it faster? Have you practiced enough? Are you inventing a new theory because you cannot play it faster? You see, faster, 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 technique, technique, technique. It's what Liszt had to do for his audience, and I refuse to do. Liszt had to withdraw from public. I mean, 1 year later, basically he retired, age 35 or something. But there was a new generation. There was a new generation of performers who didn't care. We will see in the next video also a quote from 1821 from the London Symphonic Orchestra, what would become the London Symphonic Orchestra, exactly the same. Musicians didn't care. They just played as fast as they could. If you transfer this 1844 quote to the book that Joseph Hoffmann wrote, beginning 20th century, we'll bring that on the channel soon as well, where Hoffmann said, forget about the metronome numbers, just play as fast as you can. We would think today that what he meant was, those metronome numbers were too fast anyway. No, not necessarily. He could very well mean, those metronome numbers are from that time. That's number 1 category list, like the author really would have wanted you to play that music. But we today, we do it differently. Play as fast as you can. Might very well be the case even early 19th century. And so there you have your time travel machine. You go back to a concert 1850, 1835, 1860. Who's playing? What are the options for the player? What are the options for the orchestra? What is the audience demanding that player to do? If Hans van Bülow plays the Hammerklavier Sonata, are we hearing Hans van Bülow according to number 1, 2 or 3? If Liszt couldn't escape the demands of the public, my guess is that there were no musicians in the 19th century escaping that. And so if Liszt was teaching students late in his career, those students that we have recordings from, was he teaching those people according to number 1, 2, or 3? Was he saying to Mr. Lamont, listen, I'm going to teach you how Beethoven played in 1815, the way I learned it from my teacher Czerny. And then you go out on stage and people will laugh with you and I will be happy. No, of course not. He lived in that time. He was teaching his students what you can call teaching. Most of them just had a few hours lesson with him. But anyways, he was teaching them to be a pianist in their time. As what was considered in the 19th century, late 19th century, to be a virtuoso pianist. And so they went out and they played extremely fast, yes, as we do today. What can you do more? You cannot step in a rocket and then play piano from the moon as a kind of astonishing aspect. We still have those concert halls, those pianos, and we're just humans. We will possibly not do anything much more than those people late 19th century already could do. But there you have Lamont saying, and I will bring that soon as well, in the video, or actually, it was not a video, it was just a sound recording, having a lesson with Liszt, where Liszt said about the famous Chopin Polonaise with the octaves, to a student, I don't care how fast you can play octaves. I want to see the Polish cavalry coming over the hills. Like in other words, you're playing it too fast. So, and what did Lamont do? Play that music slower? No, of course not. But still he was proud that Liszt made a comment on a student playing too fast. So they somehow knew that they were playing faster than originally was the intention. But they were trapped in option number 3, as we are still today, but we don't realize that anymore. And so what we do on the channel here, guys, is nothing more than trying to go back to the Liszt option number 1, which is the authentic idea of the composer. Or you can say, listen, I'm fine with category number 3, but that's something else than saying that what we hear today and the super fast renditions of that music, that's an authentic rendition of what Beethoven had in mind, what Chopin had in mind. It's not. And if we can accept that, I think it's peace on earth again. Because I'm not saying, and that's where the video started with, I'm not saying to you, you're doing everything wrong. No, there are a multitude of choices, but all these choices come with a price. And if you go for the Liszt option number 1, it comes with a huge price. It comes with the price of setting apart your own taste, your own ego, perhaps, even perhaps the normal human wish to shine for an audience. I mean, if you run the 100 meters in 9 point, I don't know how much, and you set a world record, of course you're proud of doing something that's cool and that's like no one else can do that. And this is like a virus that has been inserted in musical performance practice for a long time. And we're so used to that. We're so used to hear that music by people who do amazing things that we don't realize it might not just be what the composer had in mind. If you like that, then by all means, continue. I'm not saying what you're doing right or wrong. The only thing I'm saying, what sounded in Beethoven's head the moments before he noted down the 5th Symphony, there's only one version. We will never ever be able to fully reconstruct that version, but we can try. And in order to try, we have to demolish some of those holy houses. And speed, of course, is one of those. Virtuosity is also one of those. And so, guys, this Liszt quote, it's super important. It will open for you also over the next videos that I will make over the next weeks or months, a new world. I will connect all of those dots together. I will referring to previous videos a lot. And once you connect those dots, you will start to see that 19th century, that it was not a black and white picture. There were a lot of different options back then. And so that time machine, as fascinating as it might be, if you would be dropped in 1835, You would have to go to very specific places, I think, where the music was played according to the composer's wish. And you know what? There are so many sources that just say nothing more than that. Think about this. Let me know in the comments what you think about it and how it possibly can change your view on Liszt and maybe also on that entire 19th century. So that was it for today, guys. Stay tuned for everything we do by subscribing and hit that bell icon as well. And as always, I thank my patrons. And if you want to keep us going at full speed, we need you. We need you to become a patron and just support us there. There is a fantastic community. You have access to my Dropbox folders with all my digital articles, high resolution versions of the recordings we make. My personal scores are scanned there. There is a lot. And there's also the monthly hangout where you can directly talk to me and to the community, as I'm answering questions there also. Thank you for even considering going over there and check it out, and we will see each other soon again. Bye.